Hello, welcome back to The Reading Mama. I am Heather, the Reading Mama, mama of 8, and I am an eclectic reader. And today I thought I'd share a little author spotlight slash book review. So I love historical fiction. Absolutely love historical fiction. Forgive this setting. I'm in a rental. It's a whole deal. I'm hiding in the closet because kids are sleeping. Anyways, forgive this setup. But I have always loved historical fiction, and of course, like everybody else in the world, it seems like I love World War II historical fiction. And I have been trying to branch out. My kids are studying 20th and 21st century history this next year, and I usually like to read some books, both nonfiction and historical fiction, that coincide with what my kids are studying. And so this next year, that means different aspects of the 20th century beyond World War II. And so I started looking for some World War I books, and I stumbled upon Jennifer Chiaverini, if I'm saying that right, and I have absolutely loved her books. So come to find out, when I packed up my house for the mold issue, I actually had one of her books on my shelf and I haven't read it. And it's a World War II one, so I'm gonna have to read that. But I digress. The two books that I read in the last month and so are The Canary Girls and The Switchboard Soldiers. Both take place in World War I and were amazing. If you saw in one of my previous TBRs, I talked about the Canary Girls, and I was like, what is this book even about? I just knew it said in World War I. It was phenomenal. I love it because it's historical fiction without heavy romance. I don't like the heavy romance. I don't like a heavy spice. There is some, like there's a little bit, but it is not the focus. This one had a little bit more than Canary Girls, but again, not the focus. The focus is on the women of that time period and the amazing things that they did and some different social aspects of the time period. In the Canary Girls, you follow, I believe it's 3 women during World War I who become munitionettes. They start working for a munitions factory. And that's in the response to the men all leaving for war. And so you have them coming from different walks of life. And while they're there, you get a little bit of a taste of the suffragette movement. You get a little bit of a taste of factory and industrial safety efforts and the issues that arrived with these munitionettes as they built the bombs and how they contracted disease that turn them yellow, which is why it's called the Canary Girls. And then you also get some women's sports, which I never ever thought I'd like a sports book, but it did have quite a bit of football, or soccer as we call it here in America, because the Canary Girls and the acknowledgments at the back go into detail about this, that they were the foundation basically of women's soccer in England. And so it was very interesting, very well told. I loved the different viewpoints because you had a married woman who was a mother, you had a married woman who wanted to be a mother, and then you had, actually I think there's 2 more, there might be 4 in that one. And then you had some single women, and you have one who falls in love but is very innocent, very clean, nothing. The only spice, if you want to call it, in the Canary Girls was that the married woman said that she was going to make love to her husband in hopes to make a baby. And it was worded like that. So I absolutely appreciated that. I love the storyline. I love how she presents these big ideas without kind of ramming them down your throat. It was wonderful. Then let's switch over to Switchboard Soldiers. This was awesome. I love this more than I thought I would. And that's after reading Canary Girls and having really high hopes for this. It exceeded them. You follow 3 different women who become what are called switchboard soldiers. They are telephone operators during World War I. And it goes into all the nuances that were going on during World War I. I was not aware of this, but General Pershing, who's like in charge of all the American forces there in France, is like, these French operators are not doing it. Our boys can't do it. We need the women who do this so well at home. We need them over here doing it. And so they specifically trained these women, and they came out to do this job. And you follow through 3 women in this story, and they have different ranks. And you may have heard of Grace Banker. She was like kind of the head one, and she's kind of the most notorious. I actually have a picture book that I'm getting for my younger kids to read next year about her because she's that famous. But it goes through kind of the different things that they had to deal with not being respected, not being treated as real soldiers, not being given a lot of the same credit, and yet still doing some really amazing work, and that they were pivotal, because without them, the connections, the messages would not have gone through as quickly, as succinctly, and as clearly as it did. And Jennifer Chiaverini does an amazing job. I'm probably going to buy this and have my high schooler read it for next year for historical fiction, because not only is it interesting, but she just does an amazing job of outlining the war in such a way that, like, you're getting all these things, facts about their movement, about what was going on politically, and things like that, that are not, it's not boring and bogged down like a history textbook. It is in there, and that's what you want from a good historical fiction. Like, I want to learn the history, and I also want the story, and that's exactly what she gives you in this book. There is a little bit more romance, because these are all unmarried women for the most part, and so you have some who fall in love, but it's not everybody gets married and dance at the end, Shakespearean romance, happy comedy thing. But I don't know, it just does a really good job, and it doesn't go into gruesome detail of like exactly what happened, which I appreciate, because while I like reading a nonfiction book, and I will and have picked up nonfiction books that are going to tell me those gruesome details, when I'm in a historical fiction one, I don't necessarily want to be bogged down in the gruesome details. And also, like I said, I can give it to my kids to read. So I highly recommend Switchboard Soldiers. I'm gonna recommend Jennifer Chiaverini. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say her name, but I'm gonna recommend it quite a lot. She has another one during the same time period called the Women's March, and it's about like the suffragette movement. I don't know if I'll read that one. But she has a lot of books. I don't even remember how many. And what I really love, and when you can tell it's a good, sorry, my arms are getting tired, that's why I keep moving it. When it's a good historical fiction, is that you have at the end, let me see if I can find it, a really nice bibliography. Like, I want to know more about this. Here are the books the author read to learn about it. That's when you know you've got a great historical fiction that was researched, well thought out, and plotted by the author, because they did their work. And that's what you get at the end of both The Canary Girls and Switchboard Soldiers and any other good historical fiction. So I highly recommend you check it out. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.